I am currently in the Quirino Grandstand, also known as the Independence Grandstand, a landmark in the Philippines, right in Independence Road near Rizal Park. This location is regularly used for many social and political gatherings. Many important presidential inaugurations and other events have happened here, and is mostly for celebratory events that are meant to uplift the Filipino people. However, one of the most documented events that happened here was a complete accident, for not a good reason. On August 23, 2010, a Hong Thai travel service bus in the middle of a guided tour traveling around Manila was taken hostage by a 55-year-old man named Rolando Mendoza. A year earlier, in 2009, Mendoza was working in the National Police Forces until being immediately dismissed on charges of extortion without Mendoza being able to defend himself. Mendoza boarded the bus in either Fort Santiago or in Quirino Grandstand, carrying a handgun and an assault rifle. An hour later, negotiations began with Mendoza freeing 6 Hong Kong tourists in exchange for 2 photographers being voluntarily taken hostage. Mendoza was in contact with Orlando Yerba and Romeo Salvador for negotiations. Things got much more sour when Mendoza became more paranoid. The bus he was hijacking was equipped with a television, and since the media was taking clear footage of shots of police officers armed and snipers all around him, negotiations became rocky as Mendoza's demands to be reinstated to his old position was denied and a SWAT team arrived, prompting Mendoza to become much more wary. However, the worst had taken a turn. Mendoza's brother, Gregorio, who was pleading for him to surrender peacefully, was forcefully arrested because of breaching the safety of the authorities. And since Gregorio's arrest was also publicized in the media, Mendoza saw his brother being treated as a criminal, and that pushed him to his limit. Mendoza began shooting at the hostages, ending up shooting some to death. The bus driver then managed to escape, informing the authorities that everyone in the bus was killed, or so he thought. The SWAT team began surrounding the bus but failed to enter the bus for an hour. After all attempts failed to enter, they threw in tear gases which resulted in Mendoza being in scope of a sniper, being shot in the head. In the end, 9 people died while 9 more were injured. 2 of them were just bystanders. Many errors and mistakes were pointed out, but the most important were the lack of communication between the perpetrator and among the authorities discussing the crisis, the abrupt decision by Manila Mayor Lim Alfredo to arrest Mendoza's brother, distracting negotiator Orlando Yerba at a critical moment, the inefficient and stalled assault and no planning from the SWAT team, and the mass media coverage revealing any single detail of the authorities to Mendoza. Many fingers were pointed at anyone, but it won't fix the massive damage that this event had in the Philippines, especially questioning the country's competence and anti-Filipino sentiments. While there are chances of a hostage incident not going in the right direction, the mass coverage of this event gave the world a glimpse of the highest scale of national security, a level of failure and embarrassment, leading to the deaths of innocent lives. To give one benefit from the hostage crisis, it did elevate the level that the National Police Force and military take measures into hostage crisis and overall being more prepared. But in the end, it was just a shit-show, a total embarrassing front for the country, and it's a miracle how the Philippines could have recovered from this so quickly. Rest in peace to the 8 tourists who have passed away. In 2014, in the city of San Juan, a lawyer by the name of Solomon Condonevo, around 10:50 p.m., the lawyer vented in anger to a security guard by the name of Charlemagne Aiton. The two would be subjected to a heated argument about the lawyer's lost car keys, turning into a hostage crisis. Aiton took Solomon hostage, holding him at gunpoint in his office. Witnesses called the police and the hostage dragged on for hours. Aiton's demands to the police was to have a talk with the Philippine President Benigno Aquino and US President Barack Obama. Late night psychotic thoughts, am I right? At 7:30 in the morning, however, Aiton heard a siren. Mistaking it for a SWAT team, Aiton shot Solomon, proceeding to shoot himself. What was the sirens he heard? It was a fire truck announcing the start of a festival regularly being held at the same time.
Were actually, going peaceful. The hostage taker was prepared to surrender himself peacefully and avoid any sort of casualty. However, at the time of the hostage taking, you see, it was in a day or the water festival. Basically, there was this festival where people can splash water to random people, and the way the event is announced is by a siren, by a fire truck siren. So when Ayton heard the siren, they thought that it was a SWAT team. So out of desperation and fear, they shot Mr. Solomon and proceeded to shoot himself. It's really an unfortunate event that could have ended in a good manner. However, you could say that the one mistake in this entire hostage incident was the water festival. I am currently at Philippine General Hospital at Taft Avenue. On October 8, 2015, a bus was stopped at this location. While you might think that this was where people were being loaded into the bus driver and multiple passengers ran off the bus simultaneously.
Because before this, a man boarded the bus near Luneta Park. He was wielding a knife and proclaimed that he was taking the entire bus hostage. The man was following another man and was trying to find him. However, the bus driver then stopped the bus and everyone literally escaped to the exit or in the back window of the bus. I'm sorry, that sounds so fucking ridiculous. Unfortunately, realizing that the man who was following escaped, he took a woman in the front row hostage, wielding his knife at her. The bus driver went to the police and reported the incident. While trying to negotiate with the man, he proceeded to poke the victim with a knife, prompting one of the policemen to fire at the man, hitting him 2 times, giving a chance for the woman to escape. The Vice Mayor of Manila at the time, Isko Moreno, stated, "It is good that no one was hurt. We have learned our lesson," referring to the 2010 Quirino Grandstand incident. I know I sound rude, but comparing someone with a firearm to the same level as someone with a knife is pretty wild. I am outside this office warehouse store in Vera Mall, Green Hills Mall, San Juan. This is where a man stood with a microphone and a gun in his pants. The man who took 55 employees hostage. On March 2, 2020, a 40-year-old man named Archie Pare used to work as a security guard at the Vera Mall under SASCOR before being terminated from employment. The SASCOR manager dismissed his claim, stating that he was supposed to be reassigned in a different location to guard. At 11:14 a.m., Pare stormed inside the employee's area before being confronted by a security officer. Pare shot the man 2 times before the officer was transported to a hospital. Pare took control of the finance office of the mall under hostage. Pare was armed with several grenades and a firearm, threatened to kill the hostages if his demands were not met. His first demand was for all security guards of the mall to gather outside the mall. His second demand was media presence. At 4 p.m., the police began setting up a press conference, and an hour later, reporters from popular media channels as well as representatives of SASCOR arrived. At 6 p.m., 6 SASCOR officials announced their intention to resign to appease Pare. In response, Pare demanded that 2 of the officials eat 2,500 pesos in front of the media. His alternative demand for this request was for the police themselves to plead Pare to not force the act on those 2 officials. Talk about being petty. 2 hours later, the hostages were freed, while Pare just started talking for 20 minutes, like just giving a TED talk in the middle of a hostage crisis. You might be asking, where were the police in this video? Well, here, they were undercover. This leaves Pare very comfortable and open to continue talking, leaving the police a good opportunity to subdue Pare. The SWAT team then investigated the grenades planted by Pare. In reality, only 1 grenade was real. The other grenades were just fruits. In the end, only 1 person was injured and all 55 hostages were left unharmed. One of the people leading the negotiations in this case was Orlando Yerba, the same person involved in the 2010 Manila Hostage Crisis. If you have been watching this video and actually paid attention, 3 out of the 4 cases in this video involved frustrated policemen who were either met with employment issues or were just not in a great mental state, being employed in a job that requires strength and awareness while keeping calm. What I'm trying to say is that having a job that requires protecting people while earning money is pretty hard. And while the circumstances behind these people are unfortunate, Sympathy only protects you so far. Two wrongs just don't make it right. I think for these policemen, they were driven into desperation or anger, to the point where they have to abuse their weapons that meant to protect lives and end up harming lives. Say what you want about this policeman's circumstances, but in the end, these kinds of acts demand a punishment. However, what these people were aiming for is trying to be heard, trying to find people that will hear their voice in the injustice they experienced.
Police officers learned a lot from the Luneta hostage-taking incident, primarily because one of the negotiators was at the Luneta incident himself. And they were patient with the media, they were patient with the crowd, and they were patient with the hostage-taker himself.
Patience and proper consideration to the perpetrator was something that the 2010 hostage crisis was lacking. They made abrupt and hasty decisions without a proper plan, and they didn't comply with the hostage taker. What you do not want to do to a hostage taker is feel like their plan is gonna end without accomplishing their goal. Truthfully, hostage takers will never feel satisfied with their goal unless every single demand was met. Making the hostage taker feel more paranoid and distrustful of the authorities make them more aggressive and hostile. What you also don't want to do in a hostage crisis is reveal every single detail about the authorities, where they are stationed, where danger might lie for the perpetrator, and making them feel surrounded. And one last key lesson for hostage incidents is undoubtedly smooth communication between the perpetrator and among the police. In the 2010 hostage crisis, they made abrupt decisions that not only aggravated the hostage taker into a direction they deemed that it does not go their way, but also distract key personnel from communicating with the hostage taker. The authorities outright denied the perpetrator's main goal, leading the hostage taker to trust them less. And finally, the authorities giving the perpetrator a sense of paranoia, a clearly stationed police presence, as well as an hour-long forced subduction that ultimately ended in lives being taken.
It was August 23, 2010, when a former policeman, Captain Mendoza, held hostage foreign nationals inside a tourist bus in Luneta. Mahaba ang naging negotiation doon. We were trying to persuade him to peacefully surrender. Pero despite of those efforts, wala pa ring nangyari. What went wrong? Ang daming interference na napatunayan naman talaga kung sino-sino ang gustong pumapel, kung sino-sino ang gustong makipag-usap na hindi na namin na-control.
In 2020, many key mistakes were avoided. First, the negotiations were smooth and slow, yet were complying to the hostage taker. His demands were met and he felt that things were going his way. Second, they made sure that every single decision they made was planned out and properly executed to avoid unnecessary conflict between the perpetrator and the authorities. And lastly, they were able to calm the hostage taker down and peacefully conclude the hostage crisis to truly give what these perpetrators want. Media presence and a voice to speak out against their experience of being unfairly treated, without adding paranoia of any sort of authority presence, as well as finding the right moment to exploit their vulnerabilities and ultimately subdue them. Truthfully, you can never compare a case where a man is loaded with 2 firearms with a man with 1 grenade and 1 pistol, but it does not remove the severity between these 2 cases. They are severe and dangerous in their own matter, either the perpetrator having enough bullets to murder everyone or possessing explosives that can injure everyone. In the end, the results between these 2 cases are similar. Either everything goes right and no one dies, or everything goes wrong and almost everyone dies. And the only thing that can change that fate is the authorities handling and negotiating with the perpetrator.
Alam ko marami ako natulungan, marami ako na-save na buhay, at marami ako naturuan ng mga pulis. No regrets. Diyan sa trabaho ko na yan, diyan ako sumemplang Pero diyan din ako bumangon. So, no regrets sa akin.